It's great to have everyone here. This is day 3 of the International Conscious Conference and the ICC TV. Every International Conscious Conference will always have ICC TV, where we stream some of our virtual speakers. And it is interesting that today we have a man that virtually everyone wants to listen to. Are you sure he's coming? Is he going to speak? It's amazing, actually. Myself, I've been looking forward to also hear him speak to us this year. He was also a guest speaker last year. And I believe that this session is going to be not just eccentric, but also explosive. Before I read the citation, let me tell you what I know about this man. He doesn't even know how much I respect him. I share only maybe 2 people's posts on Facebook, and I share his posts because I have sent a lot of people to him. And when they come back, they tell me, well, he said he has to know me first. And these are people who are actually liquid and they're ready. And Chief doesn't care about your money. So without him proving anything to me, I discovered by myself that this is an exceptional man of integrity. In this, we have an epidemic of spiritualists in the social media space. And everyone wants your money to do something for you. But Chief is exceptional. And this is the reason I am trying my best to build a relationship with him. He's hearing this for the first time today. He doesn't know how much I want to build a relationship with him, so I can know a lot about the Igbo cosmology and history. So I'm going to read his citation from here. What I just said is from my own impression about Chief. Nzetobe Osigwe Ezeikolomuo is a Nigerian writer, filmmaker, and dibia, whose work and teachings focus on awakening through Igbo consciousness and inspiring a new vision for Nigeria. Through storytelling and spiritual insight, he challenges minds, restores identity, and calls for deep cultural rebirth. So with great joy, elevated minds, please welcome Chief Nzetobe to the International Conscious Conference 2025, Elevate Africa. Thank you so much, Chief. Welcome. Thank
you. Thank you. Thank you, Femi. Thank you for the introduction. Should I call it endorsement? Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a great time to be an African. And I also think it's a great time to be a Nigerian. And I think it's a great time to be an Igbo person, because there is a kind of cultural awakening going on right now. There is a kind of spiritual realignment going on right now. So I think this is a great time, because I believe every great movement starts with awakening. And this awakening at this stage is intellectual. This is why we are having this conference. I believe that 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, this kind of conference could not be imagined. What the kind of conferences we have, if it relates to spiritual matters, we are basically either Christian conference or Islamic conference. But now people are beginning to look back to what their traditional religion or what their indigenous way of life have to offer them, looking for consciousness in this what we before called uncivilized way or primitive way or old way. Now we have come to realize that what we call old is not actually old, but our own way, because in itself, every way is old. I wonder how we call our ancestral ways old, whereas Christianity is as old as 2,000 years. It's as old as, if you talk about the foundation, it's as old as, if you go back to the New Testament, listen, it's as old as 4,000, 5,000 years. You don't call it old, but we call our own old. We see it as an old way, whereas the ones we have adopted are also as old as our own ways. So today I'll be talking about Igbo cosmology in this consciousness conference. So I welcome everybody. My name is Ezeikolomuo. Like he said, I'm a writer and a filmmaker, and I'm a Dibia. I was the head writer of The Johnson, one of the most popular TV sitcom in Africa. What we are doing now is to bring an intellectual depth to our ancestral ways of life. It's not for noise making. It's not for clout, and it's not commercial. It's not a commercial activity. So I'm going to speak on Igbo cosmology. What is Igbo cosmology? Basically, it means how the Igbos see life, how they interpret life, how they interact with life, their worldview about life. That's what Igbo cosmology means. Every culture, how they see life. There is how they interpret life. And this how is how they built the fabric of that culture, the structure of that culture. That's why in what I will call Igbo cosmology, in Igbo, we call it ordinana. Ordinana means ode, fixed. What is fixed? How Igbos have fixed the fabric of their society. This is how it's going to be. So destroying what is fixed means erasing that thing. I think the title of Chinua Achebe's novel, Chains Fall Apart, encapsulates it. We have broken something, we have destroyed something, and things has fallen apart. So breaking what is fixed, you must risk having things fall apart. When you break what is fixed, when you jettison, not even jettison, when you destroy what has been fixed, it means that thing might no longer be there again, will not be there anymore. There will be a tragic end to that thing. So where Igbo cosmology is how our ancestors framed, structured, how our world will be. Now the problem of modern African, or I would say modern Nigerian, or a modern Igbo man, is that we are fixated in how the Europeans see life. This is why if you touch an Igbo man, he will say, my Bible said. The Bible is an European view of how life should be. The Quran is the perspective, the cultural perspective from an Arabian point of view. Most times we often forget that that thing we call Word of God is a cultural construct. It has a cultural construct. It's about people's culture. It's people's way of life. That particular thing we call Word of God. And when you start looking inwards into your own, you see your own Word of God. How your own adepts, how your own prophets downloaded from God, how life should be what? Lived or seen. So most of us Africans have ignored, we turned our back on how our own ancestors said life should be lived. We do not care. We don't want to hear anything about it. Why? Because we believe it's old, it's primitive, it's anachronistic. So we are fixated in what the people we feel that are the civilized world, the people that colonized us. So we are fixated with how the colonial masters conditioned us to view life. And we find it very difficult to go back to how life was viewed before the conditioning. So this is the anathema facing the African man. This is the anathema facing the Nigerian, a typical Nigerian. This is the anathema facing the Igbo man. This is the plight of the current Igbo man. So you must know how your own people, your own culture, because you're a product of culture. Every one of you listening to me now, you're a product of a culture. What I'm saying is that nobody fell from sky. You came from a particular culture. That means you're a product of that culture. If you're Yoruba, you're a product of the Yorubas. If you are from Ejo, you're a product of Ejo. You are Bini, you're a product of Bini. You are Igbo, you're a product of Bini, of Igbo. So if you're a product of Igbo, you must understand what it means to be Igbo and understand how the Igbos view life. I believe this is what the Greeks mean when they say, man, know thyself. Man, know thyself. That is one of the truths, one of the deepest truths that the Greeks Greek philosophy passed down to us. Know thyself. Do you know how your ethnic nationality, how your tribe, where you are from, how they view life, their interpretation of life? They say a problem known is half solved. A problem known is half solved. Now, how do Igbos see life? How do Igbos see life? Number one, I'll start from ethics. Ethics is what I will call value system. The Igbo world is structured around value system. And because we have destroyed this value system, we have jettisoned it. That's why it seems as if an average Igbo man does not have value. Because you have what makes you an Igbo person, their value system, their ethics, you have jettisoned it. You refuse to weave the tapestry of your life around this value system. Thereby, there is a kind of disconnect in your social interaction with people, both Igbos and non-Igbos. How do Igbos, what are the essential value system of the Igbo man? Number one is encapsulated in two philosophies. The essential value system, ethics of the Igbos are encapsulated in two Igbo profound philosophies. Number one, the Igbo man, the Igbos will say, Omi ife jidofo, maka ojiofo yana. Here, the Igbos are telling you to stand on truth in whatever thing you are doing. This is the foundational philosophy or value system of the Igbos, of we the Igbos. Omi ife jidofo. They are saying in all you are doing, in everything you are doing, stand on truth. Is another way of the biblical instruction. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. This is what our ancestors coined before they came with the Bible to also repeat the same thing. Our ancestors said, Omi ife jidofo, in all you are doing, in all your day-to-day activities, in all your interactions with people, with the universe, stand on truth. Because it is only truth that will vindicate you. It is only truth that will give you a solid foundation to live a successful life here on earth. Omi ife jidofo, maka na ojiofo yana. Now, ofo also have a symbolic meaning. That's why in everything that Igbos are doing, you see that stick that represents what? Truth. And we call it ofo. The worst thing that can happen to you is when offer is brought out and asks you to speak your truth, just like if they bring out Bible for the Western man and ask the person to swear with it. Up till now, an average Igbo man can lie. If you bring out Bible for him to say the truth, the person can lie with the Bible. But if you bring out this offer and give the Igbo man and ask the same Igbo man to swear with it, the person will be very careful. Why? Despite the person believes that Jesus sets free, the person will be very careful. He knows the potency of Ofo. An average Igbo man knows the potency of Ofo. This is why I said, if you want Igbo leaders to be more honest, you have to swear them in with what is peculiar, with what is their own symbol of truth, with what makes their people to stand on truth, with what makes their people to stand on the principle of justice. Just like if you give an average European Ofo, it will become a stick in his hand. He will throw it away and nothing will happen. It's not his cultural paraphernalia. So there is no spiritual bond. He has not broken any law. I keep saying it. Almost all the laws that are carrying up, we are bandying about are what cultural laws. I'm going to speak on it by the time I come to marriage about in cosmology. There are cultural laws. Most of the things we call sins are cultural laws. That are sin in people's culture. It doesn't mean that it's sin in your own culture. So, number two, in this ethics or value system is what? The karmic belief in Ometaliyabulu. Igbo strongly believe that you must reap what you sow. And this guides the average actions of an Igbo man as of then. That you will reap what you sow, either in this life or next life. That means he is now careful about the things he is leaving for his children. Nkotazo, he wouldn't want his family, her family, to be wiped out because of his actions. Ometaliyabulu, they believe that every person must reap what they sow. This means this invalidates, from Igbo's cultural perspective, it invalidates the belief in forgiveness of sin. So Igbos don't believe that there is any forgiveness of sin. You must reap what you sow. There is no forgiveness of sin in it. That means you have to be guided by your action. You have to be guided before taking any action because you must reap the consequences. Ometaliyabulu, Ometalubulu. So this is how Igbos see life from the ethical perspective. Now I come to the core, what I call Igbo spirituality, what we now know as Ordinana. Now, life is spiritual, and the spiritual controls the physical. There is a spiritual world that exists outside and inside this physical space. Just like there is a spirit within this my body. This body is housing a spirit, and this spirit can also exist outside of this body. So there is a spiritual world existing outside this physical world and also inside this physical world. So how we interact and interface with these unseen beings inhabiting this spiritual world, these entities, these elements of the unseen world is what we define as spirituality. The religious people will say that religion is what? Man's way, man-made way to interact with God. So Ordinana is how we, the Igbos, interact with what you call God, gods, the universe. Now, where the Igbo traditional religion goes is that it's polytheistic. It doesn't believe in the Western concept of one God, the Christian concept of one God, or the Islamic concept of one God. The Igbos are saying that there are many forces, and it's right, it's important you acknowledge these forces. You have your ancestors, you have Ani, which they hold sacred, that's the earth. You have water, which they believe is life. You have your departed ancestors, that passed on the baton to you, who are existing in this spiritual world. So you cannot ignore these realities. There are expectations from you as a living being from these realities. This is what the Igbo worldview is saying. They're also telling you, you as an existing person, that is on a journey, that you have a chi that is guiding your physical journey on here on earth. So that while here on earth, that you should maintain the interaction, a line of communication between you and the chi, to make the journey of your journey of life easy. This is Igbo worldview. This is how we see life. This is how our ancestors structured and framed our society, and it was working for them, or it worked for them, and still working for some people today who are trying to reconnect back. Because some people have turned their back on this system, and they have experienced some certain things and decide to do what? To go back to start seeking for answers. Our people will say, that means when something happens to you, you learn. You go back and start asking questions. So we have these forces, and the Igbo say, acknowledge these forces. You cannot say that the earth is nothing. Whereas you plant on that same earth and things germinate. It's basically what we are eating in this life is from the earth. And you say it's nothing. And say the whole world belongs to God. Let's assume in that context that the whole Nigeria belongs to Buhari because he's the president of Buhari. Is that why you should not acknowledge your state governor? Is that why you should not acknowledge your local government chairman? Is that why you should not acknowledge your own senator? Is that why you should not acknowledge your own House of Rep member? Is that why you should not acknowledge your own House of Assembly member and say they don't matter? That is only Tinubu that matters. Now, if you have a problem in your local constituency, will you leave Abuja? Will you leave, for example, as I'm residing in Uneri, will I leave Uneri and start going straight to Aso Rock to go and meet Buhari? Tinubu, who is the current president of Nigeria, that we can say that he is the one in charge of Nigeria. Does it not make more sense for me to start from my local level, the authorities at my local level, where the event happened, before you start escalating? If you have a case, are you going straight to Supreme Court? Wouldn't you start from the local court that have the competent jurisdiction? This is what the Igbo cosmology is saying. And they are saying this, that they don't believe that they are acknowledging many gods. It's simply telling you there are many authorities, and these authorities, there is hierarchy. You don't just escalate things. You don't just escalate. Everything in this life has a due process. And this is what the concept of many gods, or this element that Igbo is acknowledging, means. There are gods of the land. So the Igbos believe there is a god of the land, and they believe that there is a universal God, which they call Chukwu. So they are saying it's through these gods of the land, the territorial gods, that you access the Chukwu, then you cannot leave the territorial gods and start rushing to Chukwu. This is the Igbo worldview. This is how they interpreted life. This is how they saw life. That they are now saying that it is what? Demon worshipping. So, but if you settle down, you see that there is a logical sense to their worldview. But it's not for me. I'm not here to either justify. I'm here to explain. Now, there are other value systems, Igbo worldview. But I want to end with polygamy because I wouldn't want to take much of our time. So in case there are questions, I believe the interaction will be better that way. The final one is polygamy, because I like touching on polygamy. Because it's another worldview, Igbo worldview, or should I say African worldview, that has been victimized, just like the concept of many gods. that have been wrongly interpreted. The Igbos believe in polygamy, and polygamy is not a sin. It's a sin to the people who believe in one man, one wife. Or the that's what the Igbo man will say. What does it mean? How people used to do something, let it be so for them. And they went further to say, that is what is seen in people's land. The ways and laws you see in people's land, that is what works for them. So one man, one wife, monogamy, works for the Europeans. In fact, today as I'm speaking to you, in Russia, even if you're a Muslim, you cannot marry more than one wife. Despite that the Islamic law permits one marrying more than one wife. But you can't enforce that law in Russia. Why? Because Russia is what? A European land, and in Europe is the base is Christianity. And it's on one man, one wife. And in Bible, they will tell you, you will see a particular place where it's written that God hates divorce. And one wife. This is a cultural thing. It's not a divine injunction. So our ancestors, and I'm not encouraging anybody to go and marry more than one wife. I'm trying to say this is how they view life. A lot of people say that polygamy is because of the economic reality then. Justified it and allowed it. No, I'm saying that we should understand that this is our culture. That is what I'm saying. It's not a matter of if it's justified. It's there. I'm saying this is our culture. That a man can marry what? More than one wife. That polygamy is African, is Africa, is indigenous to we, the Igbos. So don't say it is wrong. You can give reason why you as an Igbo man don't want to a polygamous union, but don't condemn it, because that is the problem we make. We condemn our own way. Why are we condemning it? Because another culture is condemned it, because it's not beneficial to them. One man's meat is another man's poison. There are a lot of cultural practices, even modern cultural practices coming from Europe that some of us are not comfortable with. Doesn't mean it's bad. It doesn't mean it's bad. It's good for them, but it might not be good for you. It might not be good for us as Africans. It might not be good for me as an Igbo person. So this is the concept of worldview. Worldview is how your own people see life. You must understand how your own people see life. And understand that this is your own people's interpretation on how to interact with life. Do not condemn it because a different culture have a problem with it. And it doesn't mean that you must accept how your own people see life. Now, you will know it, but it's not a must you will accept it. And my emphasis is on you knowing it. So if you decide not to accept it, you will have a very good reason for not wanting to accept it, rather than condemning it based on another man's definition of what is right or wrong. Your definition on the workability of your culture, on how life should be lived, should be based on personal conviction, not because one cultural book said this is what it should be. This is good and this is bad. So I'm ending by saying that definition of what is good or bad is based on culture. This is why you must go back to your own culture and see what your culture called good and what they call bad, and start seeing life from that lenses, from that perspective. Thank you.
Wow. Oh, thank you so much, Chief, for that explosive, about 4 minutes session. Thank you so much for that. You know, I always tell people that I can't wrap my head around why an Igbo indigene would demonize their ancient cosmology. When me, a Yoruba boy, is wholeheartedly committed to learning, to aligning myself with Igbo cosmology, because I'm very convinced that it is one of the most powerful, profound, ancient spirituality system, and it is authentic. And you have done justice to that this morning, Chief. Thank you very much. We're going to take questions now. Let's start with Google Meet. We'll go to YouTube, and then we'll go to Facebook, and then we'll go to TikTok. So if you are here on Google Meet and you have any question to ask Chief, please, you can unmute yourself and go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, good morning, Mr. Femi.
Good morning. Thank you
Chief.
very much.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, Nze. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning.
Thank you so much. So my question is about libation. Is it good that every morning you pour libation? And how do you do that pouring of? If it's good that every morning you do libation, then how do you do it? And what items do you need in doing that? Thank you very much, sir.
Okay. Morning libation means morning decree. Every day is a new day. That's why in Igbo, if you see someone in the morning, you say Ebolashi. It means, have you survived? Have you come out to see? Have you survived to see this day? So yesterday is gone. Ibogoshi is a new day. So you need to make a decree for that day. So that libation is just what you are holding, or perhaps even kola nut or nzu, the white chalk, is what you are holding to make decree. Is the spiritual item you are using to make decree for that day, speaking how that day is going to be, decreeing how that day is going to be. So it's necessary. Is yesterday food going to work for you today? How can you say that I ate yesterday? Because of it, I'm not going to eat today. Do you say it? Will you eat today? What are you going to eat today? No. I've eaten yesterday.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. So we can still do libation with water or anything.
Whatever you are doing libation with, you must know what the spiritual significance of it. Many people say they use like water to do libation, but I've not understood the reason why they are using water. Because other spiritual items, I know the reason why they are being used in Igbo cosmology. If you use hot drink, it means you are charging up. Hot drink means charging.
Okay.
If you are happy and you want to charge up yourself, is it water that you drink?
Okay.
White chalk, they use white chalk because it symbolizes purity. That means you are trying in another thing, you want to purify your day.
Okay.
You are telling that what it. If you are using kola nut, you want to interact, you want to have communion. So I'm saying people that said you can use water, they need to explain. I'm not condemning, but they have not given me any sound explanation. I've not heard any sound explanation. Because in spirituality, each item is symbolic. So I'm saying, what does water symbolize in that morning decree? You can define it and it start working for you. That's the good thing about spirituality. It's just that I'm saying, present your argument. Know why you are using something. Don't just use it because they say. Like I don't say, I hate hearing this is how our ancestors used to do it. What I love hearing is this is why they do it. That's what I want to know.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much,
so much.
Uchenna. Next
Good
question.
morning. Good morning, sir.
Morning, Nadia.
Good morning.
Yeah. Yes. Good morning. I am from Jamaica, but I live in the UK. How does a Jamaican reconnect back with your system, your ancestral system, as a part of an African returning home?
I've gotten this question a lot of times from Africans in diaspora. And it's a very tough. Our indigenous religion is not an organized religion. You know, organized religion is organized to get in a lot of people. Incidentally, indigenous religion is not framed for you to get a lot of people. It's family based. For example, even within this Igbo, there are diverse interpretation of ordinana. It's not, you can move to the next community that is close to my own. You see that their own interpretation of this religion is what? Different. But I can say that this is the meeting point, because there is nothing like, it doesn't have the system. Let me use the Christianity, where you say you have given your life to Christ, you have now become a Christian. No, it doesn't work that way. You've been baptized, you are now a Christian. It doesn't work that way. You have been imparted with the Holy Spirit, you are now a Christian, a speaking in tongue believer. It doesn't work that way. It's clan-based. What you practice is how your own ancestors do things. So I always tell people in diaspora is that you have to start your own. If that is what you want, you have to start it. Learn the ordinana, learn the practices, and start it. That means you are starting your own community. It's not like you are reconnecting. Once you are starting, even the Igbos, at times some people will be in their community. They don't like how their community has set. This is how it will be. They will move and go to another place and start and create their own system. But you should know the basic respect for the earth, as in believing that everybody have a chi and trying to reconnect with this chi. Now, ancestors, having respect for your own regard for your ancestors, they pass baton to you. These are the basic. But it's not like integrating yourself to what I'm doing here in Unne. It will not work, because one, we are not from the same family. So the Nana is family based. That's why it's indigenous.
Connect with the earth.
Wow. Thank you so much. I'm sure that is very helpful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chief.
Yes,
we're going to have 2 more questions, and then we move to the next virtual speaker. 2 more questions. We can take questions from YouTube if there are questions. We'll take questions from TikTok. Are there questions on TikTok? Are there questions on Facebook? If there's no question on any of these platforms, let's go back to Google Meet. If you have a question from Google Meet, kindly unmute and...
There's a question
okay.
On YouTube.
There's a question on YouTube. Please read it out and I would... Okay, thank you.
Greetings. This is coming from Beer Bliss. Greetings. My question is around polygamy. Even though I've learned to understand that polygamy is a way of life of those before us embraced it, but in this modern reality, I'm not convinced it's polygamy.
Over to you, Chief.
Can you repeat the question? I didn't hear the question.
Okay, let me bring the microphone. Can you help with the microphone? Who is on YouTube? Okay, 1 second. So sorry. Is that YouTube? Okay, we have the question here. It says, Chief, this is a question. My question is around polygamy. Even though I've learned to understand that polygamy is a way of life of those before us, embraced, but in this modern reality, I am not convinced about polygamy.
Okay. Now, I believe that I'm talking as an African person. I am convinced that polygamy is still relevant. I'll give you an example. In the modern world, a lot of people talk about monogamy. But we have high divorce cases. We have that high divorce cases. You can see a man that said he's married to one wife. Before the end of his life, you can see that he has been involved, or she has been, or a woman, she has been involved in 2 or 3 marriages. Is this still a monogamous union? Or you see a man that says that I'm married to one wife, but the person has three girlfriends or mistresses. Is that still a monogamous union? So you see that you are lying to yourself. If you say monogamy, can you stick to it so that we understand what you are saying? You cannot be talking about monogamy and still be enjoying the fringe benefits of polygamy. You have to stick to it. Let's know. Polygamy solves chastity problem, infidelity problem. When our ancestors practiced monogamy, there was the height of infidelity that we have now was not there. If you are married to one wife and you now feel convinced and you have the wherewithal to go for another wife, fine. I always say there is an economic perspective to it then, and there is still to it now, even on both sides. I don't know why a wealthy man should be married to one wife. It's wrong. There should be wealth distribution. Marry more women, let them benefit from the blessing. Why should one woman be enjoying it and her children? When you have the wherewithal to spread it out. How did Igbos skyrocket after the Civil War? Is it not when you are blessed, you call your brother to come and join you in the business, and from there you settle the person goes and call another person? That's the quickest way of wealth transfer, or one of the ways for wealth transfer. It's still workable. Where I have problem with modern days propagators of monogamy is that they're not sticking to it. If you say one man, one wife, stick to it from beginning to the end with all righteousness. It's not we are practicing monogamy, but if you look at it very well, you see the person is in a polygamous relationship. We are not being honest, we are being dishonest. Why? The truth is that man is naturally promiscuous. So polygamy is one of the antidotes. I said one of, because it doesn't cure promiscuity in its entirety. But it helps. But so many women today feels that it's better to know that it's only them. Anything that is happening outside is not of their business. But that's dishonest. It's better people know. Where I condemn polygamy in this modern time is if you don't have the economic wherewithal. Even in a man that is that is married to one wife, and you are having numerous girlfriends, I condemn it. You don't have the economic wherewithal. But if you have the economic wherewithal, fine, good and fine. A man, once he begins to grow old, at times he might not have people that will look after him. We have seen it. The children will be very busy trying to sort out their lives. The wife will be more interested in the children. If it's in her own culture, the woman will start moving from one child's house to another child's house. No, they will barely have time to take care of, to look after or have a companion. It's only when a man and a woman have bond, developed a strong friendship. There are some marriage that the man and wife have become friends. They're inseparable. A kind of soulmates. That's where monogamy works perfectly. But it's not in this command, because what marriage is, from Igbo perspective, is reproduction. And that is what marriage is, all this union we are having, in the real sense of it at the end of the day. Is to further, is to reproduce. It's for the purpose of reproduction. Then whatever comes out next is pleasure. So what are we saying? What are we making it look like as if it's not what is not? The interaction between man and woman is for reproduction. That's the basic essence. Any other thing after that is pleasure. And people are still doing the same thing, both in polygamy and monogamy. In monogamy, one man can give can have 2 children within the monogamy and have 7 outside the monogamy. Is it still not the reproduction? Is it not dishonesty? Is dishonest reproduction? So polygamy promotes more honest reproduction and more honest pleasure. Where you know those who you are sharing your husband with. So let's be realistic. Polygamy is more realistic as far as I'm concerned. This is my own take. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Chief. We're going to take one more question before we move to the next virtual speaker. You don't want to miss the next session. The next session is called Esoteric Astrology. Let's take, if your question is not related to any question that has been asked, that's the only time you should go ahead. But let's have Ugochi Igwilo. Ugochi, please unmute.
Thank you so much, Mr. Femi.
Thank you. Thank you, Ugochi.
Thank you so much, Mr. Femi. Thank you so much, Chief, for the enlightenment. I'm an Igbo girl, so I grew up in an Igbo household. Although I can't speak Igbo, my father is Igbo. My question is, now, one of the issues we modern people tend to have with our culture is there's a bit of, some aspects of our culture are a bit unfair, some are a bit inhumane, right? Some of it lack humanity, okay? And these are some of the things that make people resist embracing our culture fully. At the end of the day, these rules that the culture is made of are made by men. At the time, I would say, according to things that perhaps were more convenient to them at the time, right? So now, for the modern day person to go back to the culture, embrace it fully, where is the room for fairness? Where is the room for, is there room for more fairness? Can this culture be revisited, revised, to embrace, to allow for more fairness, more humanity, right? More acceptance, right? Now, for example, let's look at the European people. In their European culture amongst themselves, not everyone is rich. Not everyone is of high class, right? Amongst themselves, they know who is who. Now, let a low-class, poor European man come to Nigeria and let him find himself in trouble. His European people will not abandon him. He becomes a king here in Nigeria or wherever he is. Even if he's a poor, low-class person in Europe or wherever, once he leaves that place and comes to another country, he becomes a king. If he gets in trouble and he manages to find his place to his embassy, the people will move heaven and earth to get him out of there and into safety. And even if the person, these days, even if the person is not an original European, maybe as I'm black, but I have the European passport or identity, right? And I find myself in trouble, they will still move things to get me to safety because I now have the identity. I would say that we do not treat ourselves that way, right? We easily separate, we easily ostracize, we easily push ourselves out. And I feel like these are the loopholes that the Europeans used to have a chokehold or control over us. They came and saw these loopholes, these issues that, okay, these people, they are people that they leave. There are some people that they leave on the ground that they do not support. So they embrace those ones, build them up, and turn them against us. I hope you understand what I'm saying. So now I hope there's room for us to revisit this culture to allow more humanity. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that.
Okay.
Chief, over to you, please.
You asked almost 6 questions in one question.
Forgive me. Thank you.
Now we are back. Now, let me say this. Igbo culture is not patriarchal. Many people try to paint Igbo culture as patriarchal. And it's those who don't know Igbo culture that paint it as patriarchal. Many of the things some people interpret as Igbo culture today is not Igbo culture. It's modern culture. Or what I'll call modern Igbo culture, what Igbos... Okay, let me give you an example. I spoke about housewife 2 days ago. There is nothing like housewife in Igbo culture. It's European culture that brought the concept of housewife. And now they say that Igbo men don't allow their wives to work. But where did that culture come from? There's nothing like housewife before the Europeans came. They brought it. Go and look at their culture. It's normal. It's housewife. Watch their films. You'll see it. They're the ones saying it. As of 18th century, 19th century, you watch films, all those kind of time period films. They're the ones that brought the concept of housewife to us. And now what you hear people say is that Igbo businessmen don't allow their wives to work. But before the Europeans came, once you marry, you are given what you are given a farmland. You will be settled. You have a work. They say these are women crops. These are what women plant. As a wife, you have what you are doing. So you see that concept is not Igbo, and that it goes with a lot of things. You talked about how Igbo, the culture treats women unfairly. The Igbo culture doesn't treat women very well. If you study it, it pampers women very well, more than what was brought to the Igbos. Women, society was divided into male group and women group. Man does not lead woman, except in your own house. Outside your house, no man leads woman. Men lead men, the men folk. The women folk have their own leader. If there is any rule they make by the men that will affect the women, the man leader will instruct the women leader. And the women will discuss it and reach their own conclusion and send back to the men. There are areas that are under the women, like markets. We are totally under the women. Tell me what is under the woman today. Yet they blame the culture. But it's the imported culture that operated, that destroyed these things. Look at marriage now. I told you that the European culture, they say in the Bible, it's written, man hate God hates divorce. It's now that women are suffering in marriage. Women didn't suffer in marriage in the past. How dare you beat up a woman? The people will tell you, the woman will tell you that she has a kinsman. She has kinsman. You didn't buy her from the market. She will come back and get a report. And they will come. The family will come. But now, men batter women up and down. They will not talk because they don't have anybody to talk to. Because they are weakening the family unit. The Western are weakening the family unit. Study the things fall apart so you understand what the novel is saying. The center can no longer hold again because what held us together has been destroyed. You've destroyed that fabric that they used to mold the Igbo society. Yet you are blaming that Igbo society for not protecting you, whereas you are the one that destroyed it and built something alien on it. Women marry up to 4 husbands. Just as we are saying, men can marry many wives. Women, if you come to a marriage, you don't like what the man is, you leave the woman, go back to your house and tell them to dance. Within 2 months or 6 months, you hear that the woman has remarried again. Now it's an if a woman leaves a husband, the society now treats the woman as if she has done something wrong. It was nothing then. They didn't see marriage as a do or die affair. If you go, if it works, fine. If it doesn't work, come back home immediately. Your family will accept you, even up to you now, within my area. If you come back, you'll be given a place in your father's compound. Nobody is going to chase you until you die. That's Igbo culture for you. If you have money to build your own house, they will give you where you will build. The only thing, the house that you build, you will not be given to one boyfriend or girlfriend because it's built on an ancestral land.
Wow.
So what are we saying? Is the culture that we have imported now that is maltreating women, and we don't want to study it to find out where this thing started. And we are now blaming the culture. Then secondly, how do you change an aspect of a culture you don't like? It's inside it. This is the problem with Nigerians that we have even in politics. You say you are complaining a system is not working, yet you don't want to come into that system. You want to change a system from outside. It's not possible. You must practice in Igbo culture to understand it, to see how you strengthen it.
Exactly.
You can't change something from outside. You can only change it from inside. Nobody knows you in your family. Nobody knows you in your village. Nobody, but you say that there are practices they are doing there that is not good. Please tell me, how do you intend to change it? If you are not practicing it, if you are not part of it. You change a system, even the Europeans that we are talking about, you are saying that protect their own people. It's people that fought for them to become that patriotic. Because the Europeans you are talking about are the most wicked set of people that I know that exist. They are the most exploitative set of people. They are the ones that taught our people materialism. And we are running amok with it now. We are running amok with it. Our people were not materialistic before. What you are saying is what our people were doing before. Igwe bike, Oyagana wanne, Zeli benne. Is that not what our ancestors taught? Don't abandon your own. Now we have destroyed all those things. So why won't people abandon you? But the way you interpreted it is from government perspective. Is the duty of the government to protect our citizens? Because we have destroyed our own indigenous government. So are you expecting an indigenous government that does not exist to come and protect you? It's job of the government of the day, because they inherited the European government that supplanted the indigenous government. So, but what I will say in that regard is that most people forget that Nigeria is not yet a nation. As of now, as of the stage we are in, Nigeria is still a conglomeration of different tribes. It will take time for Nigeria to blend in and become a nation. It is what will happen probably in the next 100 and 150 years. Till then, we'll still be thinking and still acting like tribes. So if you feel that is a problem for you and you don't like it, then get into the system and start showing people it needs to be done. That's how you correct a system. Don't correct a system or create a new system by complaining. You create a new system or correct a system or strengthen a system by getting in and hijacking it or destroying it from outside, then start rebuilding. If you want to outside, then be ready to have the muscle to destroy the old and build a new one. If you don't have the muscle, then you get into the system and see how you can do what, where areas you can touch, the little areas you can make changes.